everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited about our guest and our conversation. So we're going to talk all about thought leadership. And that's really beyond posting on LinkedIn, but what does executive thought leadership mean? And why is it important for, an executive in their careers, as an executive job candidate for a new role, or for board candidates? So it's really important for all three facets. We have an expert on today to talk a little bit about how this can be done, why it's important, ways that you can think about getting this done for your own career. But before we do that, I'll introduce myself and our business. I'm Debra Boggs, CEO of D&S Executive Career Management. We are a firm that works with VP, C-level, and board-level leaders to prepare for and navigate your high-level search. So we're not a search firm. We don't do placements, but we say we're like the home stagers to make a luxury property look expensive before it goes on the market. And that includes everything from thinking about what's next for you, building out your executive resume, LinkedIn profile, board documents, things like that, and then how to go to market, and finally, compensation negotiation. So if you have any questions on what it's like to work with us, please reach out to Carmen Poff on our team. She'll pop her information in the chat. And please tell me where you're joining us from. Please pop your information in the chat. Where are you joining? I'd love to see who's out there as I introduce Donald Thompson. So excited to introduce my friend and incredible expert in this space, Donald Thompson. He's a visionary business leader, award-winning CEO, multi-exit entrepreneur, author, and acclaimed speaker whose career is defined by innovation, cultural transformation, and sustained business growth across multiple industries, including technology, marketing, healthcare, manufacturing, and professional services. Donald has done a ton of things, and I'm so excited for you to learn from him today. So Donald, hello, welcome.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation since we put it on the calendar, and raring and ready to go.
Absolutely. So excited that you're here. Oh, and we've got some people, let's see, New Jersey, Puerto Rico. Norma's with us. She's our director of coaching. Indianapolis, Portland, Maine. Wonderful. So tell us, why is thought leadership so important? And again, we're talking beyond LinkedIn posts, a newsletter, things like that. But tell us really what thought leadership means and why that's important for leaders.
One of the things that, and I'll tell a quick story, and then I'll answer the question specifically. So years ago, I was running a technology firm, and we had some marketers and PR folks come in, and they said, Don, we want to talk to you about building out a thought leadership program. This is 25 years ago. And I literally laughed them out of my office. I said, I don't need thought leadership. I don't know what that is. What I need is more leads and more deals. And if you can't help me do that, I don't really know what we're talking about. And now I'm Mr. Thought Leader. And so the thing that I want to share is what changed. And what changed is the more that we think about growing our careers, growing our businesses, we're all targeting the same decision makers for their time and attention.
Yes.
And that appetite for information, where people are being deluged with digital ads, we're being now, how do you differentiate between a video that's AI done or authentically done? All of this noise in the space. What true thought leadership does is it differentiates you because you use an education first selling mindset for you and or your firm. If you teach somebody something that they can use that makes them better, that builds trust. If you teach someone something that they can use that grows their business or their firm, they now see evidence of why listening to you, being linked with you, by sharing and corresponding with you, adds business value. So thought leadership, to your point, beyond social media, is about how do you have a unique point of view or position that you can share with your executive audience in a manner that promotes your knowledge through sharing, not promoting your knowledge through selling. People are resistant to being sold to, but they're okay being shared with.
Oh, love it. I could pull on so many strings that you just mentioned. And I'd love to talk a little bit about how you said, having that unique point of view or insight to share is so important, because as we tell our candidates all the time, your experience doesn't matter. The 30 years, 25 years experience in your industry being XYZ, no one cares. How are you differentiating yourself? And having that unique point of view is such a powerful way to do that. So I appreciate that. So let's talk about what some of those ways are that a candidate or a board leader or just a executive leader in your industry, an industry leader, how can they show up as a thought leader in other spaces?
Yep. So one of the things that I would say very simply is when we think about that 30-year career, and it kind of sounding the same,
Right.
right? With
Yeah.
other folks that have a 30-year career. One of the things that people do in thought leadership that's very powerful is I learned this
Mm.
to solve that. So I learned to prospect in the C-suite to
Yeah.
solve the problem of getting more meetings and attention with decision makers by doing XYZ. But you're talking about it in a learning pattern. And so
Mhm.
there's platforms like Medium, there's platforms like Substack. There are using LinkedIn, but not a traditional post, but you can start building out LinkedIn articles. The
Mm.
reason that these things are important is because the moment you're recommended for an opportunity, the
Yeah.
moment someone sees and likes your resume at a high level, and you at least go into the consideration stack, people will start to do their research. And when people do their research, what are they going to find out about you? If
Yes.
someone does their research on me, they will find out that I've had a podcast on leadership for the last 5 years, that I have 200 articles on WRAL Tech. They'll find my book. They'll find not only a LinkedIn site, but they'll find a series of articles on LinkedIn that are specific to how I help organizations create change in a high octane business environment. It allows my reputation to be in the room before
Right.
I get there. And that is a strategic advantage as a candidate, as somebody that's looking for a board role, or somebody that's looking to raise their stature inside their current organization.
Yes, yes, that executive visibility can go internal as well. I'd love to mention something that you said offline that I thought was really powerful. I've been thinking about it for a couple days. And before I get to that, if anyone has any questions for Donald, pop it in the chat. Happy to answer some questions live here. But as we, offline, we were talking the other day, and you said that thought leadership really helps to de-risk you as a candidate. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that, because I thought that phrase you used was really powerful.
One of the things and I'll use a very specific and recent example in that I was referred for an executive consulting opportunity to a billion-dollar corporation, a very senior person within that organization. They received my bio in advance, was
Mhm.
recommended in advance. But like most executives, they don't want to be surprised.
Right.
So they did their research, right? And so in doing their research, the questions that I got were much more pointed. And
Hmm.
I was able to get into the conversation at hand faster because we didn't spend our hour, 20 minutes of that hour on the general, tell me about your background, tell me about where'd you go to school, all those things, which is super
Right.
important
Yeah.
unless you got one shot with that executive. Then you want the full time to not tell your narrative, but figure out how your narrative solves their business problems.
Mm.
And so, because I have a portfolio of content about specific areas in HR operational excellence, in
Oh,
building leadership teams, when an executive looks to me, they've already vetted me against other people that do similar things. And now, all of a sudden, because of that presence and that external validation, you're a less risky person to go and work with. You
yes.
want to, we've all heard the phrase, or maybe I'm dating myself, but you never get fired by hiring IBM,
Yeah.
right? Because the brand protects you,
Yes.
right, against making a bad decision versus taking a risk on the up and comer. Well, thought leadership allows you as the up and comer, right, to solidify yourself, not in a braggart way, but in
Right.
an information competency way that allows you to now stand above the rest because most people aren't going to intentionally put the same amount of work into thought leadership that they should.
Absolutely. People don't typically put that time in. And so anything you can do to stand out above the crowd is so important. I have a follow-up question for you to that. But before I get to that, if anyone is working through their executive job search and you're either spinning your wheels or you're just getting started, wondering if you're ready, wondering if you have what you need, we do have a tool here. If you've been on our call before, you may have seen it, but it is our executive job search diagnostic, and it will help you think through the areas of your search that are most important and your executive visibility and where you're prepared to win the offer and what may be holding you back. So I'll leave this on the screen for just a moment while I ask Donald a follow-up question to talk a little bit about, you had mentioned when people see your content, they see you for the topics that you want to be known for, right? And I think in a candidate's perspective, when we're talking to potential candidates, the idea of thought leadership scares them because it's so vast. And they think, what do I talk about? What do people want to hear about? What do hiring managers want to hear from me? And I'd like to flip it and say, how do you think about the content and the topics you'd like to be known for? How do you narrow that?
That is really an important thing. And so let me rephrase it, right? If we think
Yeah.
about the way you build out your resume or your cover letter, you talk about your areas of strength,
Yeah.
talk about your areas of uniqueness. So my guidance to folks that are in that career portal, or if they're looking for a promotion inside the business, and I did this with one of our key performance architects a little while ago. I asked her, I said, Susie, tell me the top 5 things you think you're the best in the world at. And she went off and thought about it and different things, and then wrote down what those 5 things were. I said, now give me 3 sentences on why you believe that. She went off and wrote that. And then over the course of a week, we built out her thought leadership framework, because what you think you're the best in the world at, you're comfortable talking about.
Yes.
Right?
So true.
The thing that you think you're the best in the world at, you have examples of how you've demonstrated it. So now you're comfortable talking about it, which makes you come across more confident.
Yeah.
You have examples, which makes you credible. And so now the only thing we have to focus on is distribution, because you're talking about things you've already done that you're comfortable with, and you're changing the way you distribute that knowledge. So instead of simply a resume, you are creating an article. Instead of a resume only, you're creating a nice infographic. You're hiring a designer, different things like that. So in terms of what should people share, it's things where their confidence and competency level are the highest, because those are the easiest things to get started with. If you have someone that loves football, for example, right, and you ask them about their favorite football team, they can talk for hours. You didn't even mean to ask them about that, because you were just being polite, right? You do not want to know the draft choices of their fantasy football league and all, and you just get this litany of things, right? But because they're educated about it, because they're enthused about it, it's natural and authentic.
Yes.
And so don't try to match your thought leadership to trends first.
Yes.
Match it to your experience first, and then align it with language that links with the trends. For example, if you want to talk about AI, you may not be an AI expert, but you can say how I'm using AI to become a better HR professional.
Yeah.
That you can talk about. You don't have to be technically proficient in all those things. You just have to link it to what you do, what you're excited about, and it'll be natural.
I love that point, because I had a LinkedIn post today on AI and hiring, and not an AI expert, but it is something that really matters to our industry in the career space, right? And so while I had to look up, the article of what was going on in AI at the time, I was able to easily marry it to my thoughts on how this could impact the hiring space. So that's such an interesting point. And I love your point about, let's go with the lowest hanging fruit, because I think the barrier for most people is getting started, that first step. What do I write about? What do people want to hear about from me? All of these things, especially if you're not used to doing it. But if you go with what you know and you put something out there, once you get started and the world doesn't end and no one dies, right? Then you can keep doing it, and it's easier, and it becomes less burdensome for people. I love that so much. No, yes, you're fine.
The thing that I would extend on what you're describing is think about consistency first.
Yes.
Right. What has any of us done well that hasn't taken time to learn that new competency? This isn't different than that.
Yeah.
Right. And so most people write one article and they're looking at how many views they have, versus how do I get to 5 articles and I can do them faster with higher quality. And then over time, you start to develop your own rhythm and your own lane. And then what happens is that you now are developing not just the things you want to talk about or promote, but now a process of how thought leadership is a part of your everyday landscape. The second thing that I think, and this does have to do with social, that I think it is super easy to do.
Yeah.
To start commenting more thoughtfully on things that you like from other people.
So important.
Right. And then secondary to that is then forward things that you think are really powerful that you read. I learned this from this thought leader and I would love to share. When you get in that habit of doing that, now you're dipping your toe into that information highway, but you're not doing so in a way that is scary, that you feel unprepared, and you don't have to. The key is just developing that thoughtful ear to what great thought leadership looks like and sounds like as you're learning to create your own.
Is so important. And I think, when we work with executives who are starting their job search and they think, I want to be more active on LinkedIn, but I'm scared about posting, or I don't know what to post about, or I don't have time, or whatever this is. The very first thing that I always suggest is comment more thoughtfully, because anywhere you're commenting, and I know this, we said beyond LinkedIn, but we're talking LinkedIn here, is anywhere you comment, your name, your picture, and your headline is going to follow you around anyway. And that's going to help with your executive visibility at the very least. It can't hurt. And so this is a great way to stay in front of your network in a way that is a little more approachable if you're just getting started, or if you're not the person who always wants to be out front and center.
Yeah. Another thing that I would say is that most people, maybe you're not ready to have your own podcast or different things. Take advantage of being a guest on a podcast if you know someone that has one, right? Because what that does is it gives you that one 30, 60-minute segment in time that you then can create a lot of digital snippets from to create your own thought leadership package from one single guest appearance on a podcast. And so a lot of times people think in the grandiose thing of what thought leadership is, but let's say you're a consultant or you're looking at a job search or different things. If on your personal website or on your LinkedIn feature page, it has one podcast where you are a guest featured and promoted on a particular topic, you now have thought leadership content. And so I encourage folks not to think about it in such a mountainous way versus the brick by brick way, and building that wall, if you will, that leadership education wall, one brick at a time.
Yes, I love that point about, being a guest on podcasts that already exist, getting started. And quick plug, actually, Donald and I actually met because his wife has an amazing podcast that I was lucky enough to be a guest on, Diversity Beyond the Checkbox. And she really does this very well. And I had the opportunity, and then we met through that. And so I think, there's so many opportunities that can come out of some of these things that are just natural extensions of you going through your thought leadership journey. Quick question, and we didn't talk about this offline, so I apologize if I'm putting you on the spot.
That's all right, I'm ready.
But help us who have no idea what's going on. What the heck is Substack, and how should we be using it?
That's fantastic. All right. So one thing is I don't like to overcomplicate things, right? So Substack is a platform that you can freely and easily publish. Yes, they have some premium versions and all this stuff, right? But it allows you to have all of the infrastructure to build an audience similar to what you can do on Medium, on LinkedIn, and other. Substack is becoming a alternative to a lot of the social media sites that are much more restrictive, that are all pay to play and more ad based in terms of how do you get profiled. And so it's a good business centric site or platform, if you will, to start to publish your content. It doesn't necessarily require a lot of infrastructure, a full team. I'm giving examples of things that somebody could do with a little bit of guidance and mostly on their own.
Right. I love that. And, I had been largely ignoring Substack. And then the other day I was listening to NPR, and they had a guest thought leader on because they had found them through an article they wrote on Substack. And I thought, oh, wow. Okay. Time to start listening then, I think. So I appreciate that.
And then one of the things to that very example, because you're hearing about Substack in a business environment context, that 10 followers there equals 100 noisy followers that you don't think are business minded or decision makers. So the quality of the audience is pretty good as well. Oh,
interesting. That's really good to know. Before we move on, if anyone has any questions for Donald specifically, pop them in the chat. I'd love to answer your questions live. And if any of you have just joined us, let us know where you're joining us from. Where are you joining us from? What made you pop into this conversation? Really excited about continuing this. And so, Donald, we talked offline a little bit about how AI is affecting executive thought leadership and what that means, from a content creation standpoint, but also standing out. Talk to us a little bit about what that looks like.
AI is a phenomenal infrastructure set of tools. But with phenomenal tools, they still need expert drivers.
Right.
And so what AI is doing, unfortunately for many, it's an advantage to me, is it is flooding the zone with average content.
Yes.
Right. And so it's getting even noisier. And so when you think about executive thought leadership in AI, I think about it in terms of better research.
Yeah.
I think in terms of creating a lot of creativity at scale for your taglines and your posting. Yeah. But it still requires, right, a human touch to create that authentic, measurable, high quality content that you want to be tagged with your brand. Right. So I think that a lot of times we use tools as shortcuts versus tools as accelerators through a high
Right.
quality process. So I use AI as an acceleration tool for high quality content, but I still make sure that my team or I personally vet anything that's pushed out, because I don't want people talking to a machine. I want them talking to me, but
Right.
the machine is my research tool. That
Yes.
machine allows me to get smart fast. That machine allows me to research trends and do market research at an accelerated rate, and then use my intelligence, intellect, and experience of how to message that experience in a way that's unique to me.
Mm. I love that so much. And it resonates so much with what we tell our candidates too. At the executive level, an AI written resume is going to look like everyone else's AI written resume, right? It's just flooding the market with average resumes and with average LinkedIn profiles. And we've had a lot of executive candidates say, oh, my AI wrote my resume. What do I need to have someone else help me with? But really what AI does, and what we teach our candidates to do, is it's a job search accelerator through all of those areas that you can research more companies, find the people you need to tap into, make introductions. What should you be talking to people about? How to prepare for interviews? There's so many ways that it's an amazing tool that is beyond just putting out average resumes that isn't going to move the needle.
One of the things that I want to extend on that very comment, and we'll use folks in the job search, right, is AI should be your prompt and your starting point, but
Right.
it's not going to create a story that's compelling for the moment that you're in.
Mm,
And if you get it wrong, it's going to hurt you.
yes.
If it feels automated, if it feels same, it's going to actually be a negative outcome. So here's how I think about it. And then here's the other thing that people don't do with AI. They haven't invested in training
Mm-hmm.
their AI agent that they're using in chat or Perplexity to
Yeah.
really have the nuance of who they are. And so they come out and producing more generic, versus because I've spent time, effort, and energy, I've uploaded all my different content. It
Right.
knows about me, my bio. My AI actually produces, right, content that's closer to who I am and what I do and how I want to sound, because I've
Right.
trained it that way. And so if you're just
Oh,
using a generic version and you've not put in that effort, you really need to make sure that human touch is still a part of the equation in a major way.
exactly, because it's not going to sound like you. And people really, when you see something AI written, you can tell, right? And so when it lacks that authentic voice, and yesterday we had, so my team, we do a monthly meeting with all of our writers and coaches, and we have a training topic. And I love this because we're always trying to work on professional development. How do we get better? And our longtime copy editor, Sandy Perlett, quick shout out to her, did a presentation on number one, what she looks for in copy editing when she copy edits our documents. And she's been our editor for 7 or 8 years now. And it goes way beyond grammar and spelling, right? It goes really deep into all the areas that she knows executive leaders need to stand out. And then we had a really rich discussion on, okay, in the world of AI, when people are writing their resumes, how do we make our candidates sound more human? How do we weave the storytelling in? How do we bring their distinct voice into these documents so that people can instantly look at the page and know this is a human, this is not a bot? And I think that's a really important distinction in our writing as well. We had a really rich conversation about it yesterday that really appreciated from our team. And I see how it can also mirror in the thought leadership space.
The thing that's, that you are alluding to that I want to just reinforce, machines are about acceleration.
Right.
People still want to do business with people they like
Mm-hmm.
and that they
And
know,
TJ.
right? And so, one of the folks that was on, and we're launching it this week, was the CEO of Edelman Canada. And Edelman creates this trust index every year, right?
Oh
And they
yeah.
do a lot of research and different things. So when I'm talking to folks about AI, I also am talking to people about trust,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you establish trust through things that are authentic. So the tool is your fire starter, your accelerant, right? But the trust is built in how you align the story you're telling to the value you're going to deliver to the business.
Yes.
Right. And those links, right, have to show up in everything that we're doing thought leadership wise, our cover
Yes.
letters, all the things that we're doing with hiring managers, because that unique differentiator comes through in each step of the process of getting a new role, a board seat, et cetera. Not any one thing that you do, but in each step that you deliver.
I love that so much. And I try not to interrupt you because I want that to be a clip for a conversation later because it's so true. Your unique value is not a statement that you say in an elevator pitch. It is woven throughout every interaction. It's woven throughout your entire resume. It's not a branding statement. It's the North Star in all the content you share. And that's really what we need to be thinking about. It is not a one-time project. And I think, the way that you describe that is so perfect for board candidates, career candidates, and just people looking to build their reputation in their industry.
The other thing that I would say, get some AI training.
Yeah.
I've taken a handful of prompt engineering courses. It was 5-6 hour investment, but it saved me 10 times that already. And
Yes.
the more that you are immersed with the tools, here's the other thing. We are in a business transformation where AI is touching all the aspects of businesses. So
Right.
when you think about your candidacy, if you have a higher degree of AI fluency
Mm-hmm.
and a candidate with a similar perspective, a similar background, right, that's going to raise your profile, right, in the way that people are selected these days, because everyone's trying to understand it and the useful components of it in the workaday world. And so I highly recommend, right, educational investment, right, in the AI tools and how to use them so that you can start to pinpoint how they can make you a better professional.
So true. That's such a great way to stand out. And on that topic, I'm going to pop up on screen here. If anyone is in an active executive job search, or you're thinking about launching one here in Q1, maybe even Q4 this year, take a look at our job search diagnostic. It'll help you see where you're ready to really compete for these top opportunities and what areas in the executive search may be holding you back and costing you offers. So I'm going to pop this up for a moment here while we start to wrap up a little bit with Donald. I cannot believe how fast a half hour went. We say this every week, but I really mean it this time. I think we could really dig into this constantly. But what is one thing you hope everyone takes away from this conversation, Donald?
The biggest takeaway is that you can start small, develop competency and momentum over time. Don't make this a daunting task where you've got to figure out how to write an article every week, where you've got to figure out how to build your own white paper. All of these different things will come in due time. But what's the article you're going to write and publish next week? Stage one, step one. And then once you do that and start getting that good feedback, start learning that process, we're naturally encouraged to do things again and again that we're learning and improving. And
Yes.
so I say start small, right? Walk before we run. And then I would say get a very, very specific thought leadership goal that you're going to start your program with, and let's just hit that.
Yes.
And we'll build momentum over time.
I love it. That's such a great tip for people. Just get off the start line, right? That's typically the hardest part for people. There's a question in the chat. Michelle asked, what prompt engineering course providers do you recommend when we go back to our conversation?
Coursera is the platform that I use, and there's a lot of them. I'll send it offline, but I forget the gentleman's name, but it was the university, I think it was Purdue. Oh yeah. And it was around prompt engineering for business professionals. Ooh, so if you just go into Coursera and search on that, you'll be able to pull up one or two that'll be great. And I really enjoyed it because the better you talk to the machine, the higher value output you get. So it was really a worthwhile time save.
Oh, wow. I love that. That's so important because I know our team, we try to stay up on all the latest in, and how to use prompts for the executive job search process, but using it from the business or even really understanding how to build prompts is such an important topic for, I think, everybody right now. So thank you for that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. For anyone who's interested in learning more about working with us at D&S Executive Career Management to help advance your search, land that next role, maximize your compensation, reach out to us at with Carmen Poth. She has her link in the chat. I'm sure she'll pop it in again, or visit our website at dscareermanagement.com. And Donald, where can we find and follow you?
LinkedIn is perfect. Very active on LinkedIn. Send me a message or a note. And then obviously, Deborah, with our partnership, you can reach out to the team at D&S. And anything that we're into and doing, we're going to be doing a lot more collaboratively. And so that's a great place for folks to reach out as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time and expertise today, Donald. It was so good to talk to you.
It was super fun. I enjoyed it.
Always fun with you. Thanks a lot.